Now I'm going to cut his head off at the jawline. And you could do this with any character, any creature. You just want to fine tune so you know where you're going to start your sculpt. And I'm going to cut his jaw off as well. You're going to find you're going to need a lot of copies of whatever drawing that you're working with, because we end up chopping them up a lot. So there's my jaw. I just want to know where that is on this big white piece of foam. Place him in here. Just get the back of the head, back of the jaw, and I'm just gonna, that's where his eye is. Do a nice little cut here. I just want to get as much information onto the foam before I start sculpting, just so I remember where everything is. Just cut a little line in there so I knew where the nose, the bridge of the nose is. Now I can start getting into sculpting the broad strokes here. And just for the fun of it, I'm going to use my turkey carving knife so everybody can see how this works. Again, everyone, safety. These are made for cutting meat. This is made out of meat. And always remember to take this right out of your mom's drawer and leave all the glue and foam bits on it, so the next Thanksgiving, you're the one that's going to be in trouble. Moms love that. Mine did. I'm just starting to roughly shape out the character. I'm going to round off the corners, making a neck, creating the head, a little bit at a time here. But again, this is a tool for taking a lot of material off, not a lot of finesse here. So I'll get a little bit off of this side. And since we are going to be sculpting this all the way around, I just want to flip them around. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side with my, where did I put my head? There we go. Obviously I've got to flip my patterns over, because I want to know what he looks like on the right side. Okay. And you always want to keep flipping your project. You don't want to do too much on one side. This is sculpting, but you can't build it back up. You're just taking away. So you have to be doing this with a little bit of precision. You have to keep flipping this character. You notice how I start the foam a little bit, keeping this hand away. Get a little piece out there and I pull this. Always seems to help slide the knife through a little bit better. And I've got a lot more off of one side than the other. You got to look at this from all angles. Almost all the time, I'm trying to cut away from myself. That's what you want to do with any sharp tool, any kind of cutting tool. Never want to draw it towards. There's times where you might have to. That's what works. Most times you're cutting away. If you notice you start cutting a little bit too much off, you could just end up scaling it down a little bit. Since this is a model, you could scale your project down a little bit. Have to do a little simple math again. when you're scaling it up. Instead of a 1/4 scale, maybe you're working with 1/5 scale or 1/6 scale. But if you're careful enough, you're taking little bits at a time, you should be all right. You could, if you really had to, always add back onto this with some of your scraps that you're cutting, or like I started with a 10-inch thick block piece of foam. You can always add on a 1-inch piece, a 1/4-inch piece, if you really felt that you needed to. Good. Trying to keep my workstation somewhat clean. You can see with all the scraps that I'm pulling off here, I'm just throwing them on the floor. I'm trying not to keep it on my table, especially when you start getting Persona blades lying around. You start getting these guys lying around. They start hiding underneath bits of foam, and it's a really great way to slice your hand, get some scars on your fingers. You really don't want that. I'm just trying to figure out how I want to start approaching the head, keep referencing my design. When we get designs from the design department, they usually give us lots of different views. I usually work with a profile, just so I can cut out the profile of the character. But they'll provide us with 3/4 views, especially if it's done in ZBrush. If it's a 3D design, 3/4 views, top views, front views. They're always, the more views you have of your character, the better. And especially now that they're being done so much in ZBrush, we get perfect front-on views. The side equals the front equals the top. That's really fantastic. But for today, we're just working with the side. And you have to kind of use your artist eye to fill in the blanks here. I don't have a front view. So knowing anatomy and knowing how much I've carved before, how much I've sculpted foam, hopefully I'm going to be able to fill in the blanks of what I don't have designed. I think I'll get it. We'll see. Now you can see as I'm carving away, I'm losing all of my my original black lines. Those were there just as a reference to begin with. You can always, you've still got your profile here. I could always lay this back up here once I start losing the orbital bone, once I start losing the nasal carve here. I can keep laying this over and reminding myself where it is. See, I keep trying to get my hand behind wherever I'm cutting. When I'm doing something this big, I like the carving knife because it takes off the material quickly and in bulk. If you don't have one of these handy, we can always go in with our carving knife that we used to cut the bulk earlier. A lot more back and forth action. You get a little bit smoother cut. It's nowhere near as noisy. Doesn't create quite as much dust. The fine little bits of foam jumping around. But you're going to see the tools I'm going to start to use are going to get scaled down. So I'm going from electric turkey knife to a hand knife to probably my larger carpet knife. I'll get into that relatively soon, and then down to the Persona blade, which is for real fine carving. I'm trying to jump around the block as much as I can. I don't want to carve down one side and find out I've got it carved below the center point. So I'm constantly flipping this back and forth. I want to take off as much from this side as I am from this side. Again, this is just it's a rough for what we're going to end up with. This is 1/4 scale, but you still want to make sure that you're symmetrical, relatively symmetrical. There's no symmetry in nature, but when you're carving a monster, carving a creature, there has to be some symmetry to the head. You can't have it completely lopsided. Keeping my area clean. But yeah, so you're just going to keep flopping this guy all over the place. Kind of like wrestling a really big teddy bear. And the nice thing is too, if you're your upholstery shop that you get this foam from, I like to recycle a lot. And I'm going to show you something. This is what I've taken off so far. All of this can go back to an upholstery store. And that goes to another place. It gets chopped up really fine, and that's what they use for padding, making a carpet padding. So try to recycle when you can. This is terrible to stick into a landfill. After a project like this, I usually end up going back to Atlas Foam with 5 trash bags filled with foam, and they love it. Because I'm giving their product back to them. This is, the foam I'm working with right now is the 12TF. It's called upholstery foam. This is the kind of foam that you're going to find inside of your sofa cushions, chair cushions. I don't recommend you opening up your parents' couches or your own sofa just to use this foam, because you'll be left without a cushion. But to each their own. The first time I started working with this foam, I just went to the upholstery shop and they gave me all of their scraps and a can of adhesive, and I spray glued all of the sheets back together, the small sheets, and made one large sheet, and then started carving down from there. And that worked for a while. Just remember, companies in your small hometowns love giving away stuff sometimes. When you're doing something really weird and fascinating, they love helping out. So never hurts to ask to have scraps. I'm starting to kind of visualize. I whittled a lot of foam down, just trying to use my my third eye here, trying to figure out what my character would look like in a front view, back view, all that sort of thing. Starting to get into a little bit of the detailing. I can still use the big knife for that as long as it's comfortable. And you notice a few of these times I'm cutting towards myself. Sometimes you just can't help it, but you got to do what you got to do. Just keep safety in mind. I still have all my fingers. I want to make sure I keep my my profile. You can see I'm not taking too much away from the profile here still. Starting to work on the orbital bone. Probably start getting into the mouth here, and that's when you can start using your smaller tools. Now I'm going to do a little tracing here again. But I lined up where my eye was. So there's the eye. I still have some of my profile left. So I just want to figure out where his mouth is. Do that on the other side as well. I lost his eye on that side, but I still have a little bit of that corner to line up. And then just make sure that is connecting in the front, which I'm pretty darn close. But at a certain point, your design is just going to be an aid for you to sculpt by. Your tracings on here are going to go away, and you really have to use your artistic skill to fill in all those blank spaces. So I just cut a line in here to show where his mouth is, show myself where the mouth is. I know I still have a lot of material to take off, but I know that line is going to be there. I'm going to rig up one of my Persona blades here.